Okay, so this is a video that I am shooting off the dome. I wanted to respond in my own way to, I'm going to do two videos, but this one, first one, I want to do because it's fresh in my mind. A reaction to this whole Nature Boy situation in his sentencing of life imprisonment for for the charges that were leveled against him, including rape, false imprisonment, and basically revenge porn. Uh, so yeah, I'll break it into two. One will be about Nature Boy and my reflections on him, and then one will be a reflection in my thoughts on the women that are his wives that are in that particular situation, cult situation, right? So I've done a video before on the distorted masculine, the distorted divine masculine in particular. I think there is no better example and proof of what I have said in the past than this particular situation. I'm going to keep an eye out in life for situations that come along and continue to prove this theory of mine. But Nature Boy is essentially a divine masculine. Why do I say that, right? It's a man that despite his background, challenges and difficulties he had coming into this world and establishing himself in manhood and understanding his sexuality and his identity, despite all that, he was a man that said, look, I'm interested in higher truth. I'm a man that's interested in balance. I'm a man that essentially was interested in higher understanding and wisdom. However, like I said in my video, in which he's a perfect example, he is a distorted masculine in that he allows his ego to run the show. He allows the destructive male tendencies that dominate and cloud his mind to lead the show. So the thing that's tricky about distorted masculines is this, right? When your ego and your self-esteem and your self-respect is challenged, and you are a man in the world in masculine energy, it can become so in the process of trying to reclaim and turn things around, that effort can become distorted. It can become inverted. It can become a man can draw on some really dark places in himself of domination, terror, tyranny, destruction, to really make himself feel back in a state of mastery of his life, right? Mastery of those that are around him. So with Nature Boy, it's a situation where he allowed his fears and negative thoughts that he had about himself all along to run the show, right? It led the show in how he interacted with every woman that he ever came across with every man that he essentially had an interaction with. So people fall in two categories. Those that are either going to establish and validate how you see yourself, or those who will run contrary to it. Most people have a balanced approach to that dichotomy in life, right? But when you have men such as Nature Boy, where his self-esteem has already been so shattered and fractured, any inflection, any challenge that he has towards the self-esteem that and the identity that he has created is crushed, right? I see that most particularly in the men that he dealt with, right? And also his interaction with other men in conversations in various communities, when he would try to engage with them. Always very confrontational, the desire to subjugate other men. is prevalent in men that have a broken sense of identity, a broken sense of masculinity. They seek to vampirize that off of other men, right? Instead of figuring out how to fight against the things that are oppressive to him, or things that distort his visions and his emotion towards things. It's easier to go out and be in conquest of others and to destroy other people's lives and essentially to destroy his own, right? It's a very, very destructive energy. There's a work that, of course, one of my favorite scholars, Tessarian, has a piece called The Sage versus the Psychopath. There is an extremely, and I even wrote a little short article on it. I'll see if I can find it. There is an extremely thin line that runs in men, particularly men that are called to a spiritual walk and called to share things with their community, right? When those that are called to engage in higher learning, in higher wisdom with others, those men walk a very tight rope between the sage and the psychopath, right? The sage is an archetype of a man that embodies wisdom. But usually this wisdom comes with the cost of time. It's a wisdom that's developed from decades of observing the interactions of cause and effect. It's a man that has wisdom based off of the understanding of spiritual principles. It's a man that has wisdom based off of his observation through time of those spiritual laws playing out. It is a man that is full of wisdom that is channeled, right? That's a lot of power inherent in men that carry that kind of energy. Men that have a strong sage energy command typically a lot of respect and adoration, especially from those that are broken in and of themselves, that see wisdom, that see strength and garner strength from the wisdom that a sage can offer. In that power, in the development of that power, the inexperienced young sage, some sages, allow that to distort the vision of themselves and the perception that they have of themselves, the perceptions that they have of others. It becomes a conquest. It becomes an effort for the ego to be dominant. It becomes a quest for the wisdom that you have given to be a testament to the man's own strength and ability. And rather than seeing things as a gift, they see them as an extension of themselves, right? They become ultimately destructive, tyrannical, big bullies, basically, a tyrant, someone that enjoys eventually the bulldozing of others in the pursuit of the power that naturally comes from being able to pull that kind of power off of people because of the wisdom that you may embody or carry. It's destructive to communities and families. It's destructive to individuals because it doesn't really allow for them to develop into their own wisdom and understanding. It is about that power and wisdom, that power that comes from wisdom, to be siphoned back to the person that you got it from. It's designed to be vampiristic in that sense, the relationship. So that's the thin line between sage and psychopath. Of course, I think Nature Boy is the perfect example of how that plays out over time. Some might even question the nature and degree to with which he even went down there with knowledge. You'll get no arguments from me. But what I will say is that I saw the development of a man become a psychopath over time, where he had a choice to be a man that wanted to just be about sharing wisdom and learning from others. It became an effort to be the dominant, powerful one. That wisdom, any wisdom, is used towards the empowerment uh, and psychological boost that comes from dominance over others. So there's no question in my mind that the evolution of Nature Boy from sage to psychopath is something that could have been avoided. It's always about the willingness of a man or a woman, but particularly for men, because this is a male energy. Let's be clear. The decision to be self-reflective and go within rather than seeking the fix on the outside through people, through relationships. Yeah, so excuse me. I'm sure that I will have more insight on this whole Nature Boy situation, but for now, I guess that pretty much sums it up. Nature Boy from sage to psychopath. Representing the most broken of male psychology, and when it becomes inverted, how destructive and tyrannical it can be. Now, let's talk about how that's propagated. There are plenty of men walking around the streets right now that have the same psychology and brokenness internally as him. But what made his situation so different? Right? I'll tell you what made his situation different. The women. The women are the catalyst to what we are experiencing today, known as Nature Boy. So, how that happens. What is it that keeps other men who even have more knowledge and insight and even experience and maturity from having a cult or a situation like that? The agreeability of the women makes the difference. Women are, another content creator named Six that actually said this, and I guess I agree to an extent. Women are a beacon for certain communities and organizations and situations that are harmful to women, that are abusive to women. And so I think that they provided the backdrop that was needed for the growth in that organization known as Carbonation. I also think that the degree to which over time he decided to go towards and move towards the archetype of being the psychopath, of being the tyrant, the tyrannical. All along the way, that constantly requires agreement. And so it could be very easily said that none of this would have even happened if the women that he engaged with could have developed a sense of self-respect and self-identity that was needed to stand against, that it is needed to stand against tyrannical forces, period. Now, there are two reasons that didn't happen. One, men such as Nature Boy and essentially most men that have a kind of energy that is dominating and domineering, right? They tend to draw personalities around them that are more, how would we say, more submissive, more allowing, more mutable. Energies that will allow that person or that energy to be mostly expressive, right? And there's always an effort to develop a, a group that supports you no matter what, right? But with people that are tyrannical, people that have ego, psycho-emotional issues, those groups and people that follow and flock around, there can be no sense of contrary thoughts, opinions, or insights that go against how they see themselves or what they are trying to develop of themselves. He's even said, "You're in my dream. You're in my spiritual journey," right? So that's literal testimony to what I'm saying. That came from his mouth. So this was by design, of course. The kind of women that are drawn into things like this are hand selected. Women that come into this but have a stronger sense of self and identity are also self-selected in that they end up leaving or don't stay for long. The women that stay are of a particular type of psychology, right? That in and of itself is its own video, its own study. But it doesn't take much for anyone to see that women, carbonation wives, women are broken, right? Broken sense of self, broken sense of identity, broken sense of self-esteem, broken sense of what to do in their actual life. No sense of grounding, no sense of where to go, what to do, no assuredness in their skill set, talents, or abilities. With a man who is giving them the programming in the words that play in their subconscious, that all of those things are not something that they can develop anyway. No sense of agency behind developing those things that make you okay in the world. If that is essentially a feminist doctrine, then so be it. But I don't think it's a feminist doctrine to say in any country in this world, we want women to be okay and self-sufficient. We want women to be in a situation where they can take care of themselves so they're not subjugated to the whims and throes of the world and the most tyrannical, diabolical, demonstrous of men that would have them in any kind of way, right? So it must be said that if a woman doesn't want to cultivate and figure out those things for themselves in life, there's nothing anyone can do. One thing I can tell you for sure is that they're runners. I too know about running. I was a runner. Sometimes I keep my track shoes close, but I know to not put them on because running solves nothing. You have to stand in whatever situation that you find yourself in. You have to stand in whatever circumstance that you find yourself. You have to figure out the agency within yourself as a woman and as a man to figure it out for yourself. Do not rely on the I want to say archetype, but not try not to rely so much on the perspective and the role of I'll just soak into womanhood and see how I can survive that way. Well, yes, my beloved, you would survive, but barely if you're not beaten to death first. We've been put into a time for whatever it's worth, for you to develop your self-worth, for you to develop your sense of agency and your own personal sense of direction. The men that come into your life are great partners in that you are moving together in the same direction, are supportive of each other. But I tell you, if you decide to bless him with that glorious role of being the supporter of his directions and his dreams, he cannot be tyrannical, because that is an invitation for tyranny. It's a responsibility when a woman says, I submit unto your agenda, your mission, and your journey. Because either way, beloved, you don't escape from being on a spiritual journey. I assure you that. I assure you of that. A man like Nature Boy will come into your life to put you back on one. I think it's interesting that these kind of conversations are also international, right? The idea of your role as a woman and your obligation to be supportive and to follow the lead of a man, of men, is righteous and a good thing. But however, there's been a check on it that's been in the ethers that I think is officially here. If a man is leading you to nowhere, and is leading you to destruction, and is leading you to hell, irregardless of what he sold you and his family initially, you have the right and the obligation, beloved, to jump ship. That is the self-respect that you would have towards yourself. And that's what it would look like to pass the test, essentially. But every woman is different. What I'll also say about those women, and I did another video on this, and the distorted divine feminine. Check it out when you get a chance. But the distorted divine feminine, I would easily submit to you that all of those women are in a distorted feminine position, just like Nature Boy. That's why they're attracted to each other. There's a really dark, dank, insidious psychology that goes into women that purposefully seek and stay in those kinds of situations in relationships. I did one video on it in the past that was pretty popular, called Confessions of a Pick-Me. And so I definitely think that it's worth checking out in this situation. I think that Nature Boys, girls, are the textbook definition of what a pick-me looks like to the extreme, right? The pick-me psychology is, and I went into this in the video, is naturally drawn to the most demonstrous, darkest of men in the first place, because those are the feelings that she inwardly feels towards herself anyway. You know, there's nothing that Nature Boy says to Malia that Malia ain't already said to herself 50 million times before she wakes up in the morning. It's a confirmation from the world of how you think of yourself anyway. Particularly some of the things that he says, you know, I mean, all of it is just horrible, but I almost don't even have the words for it. The broken psychology of a woman and her self-respect is absolutely required for a man like that to propagate and have any place in her life. The inward violence that a woman has towards herself is easily expressed and accepted from abusers and men such as Nature Boy. So yeah, I'll tell you what, I will continue to think on this. I have no doubt in my mind I'm probably going to come back with another one on this. Yeah, there's some more to explore. But yeah, I want to say those two things for sure. So yeah, that is what I think ultimately about the whole Nature Boy and carbonation situation. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is two, as far as the men and women go, it's two sides of the same coin. And as far as him, getting a life sentence, I think that it is now a situation in which the life sentence that those women live, he is now invited to participate in himself. Right? I think that, like I said, I think that in so much as Nature Boy is all about attention, so are the women he's with. The most attention they've ever had in their life, both of them. I mean, all of them, you know. So instead of figuring out righteous ways to garner attention by developing your skills, talents, and abilities, you'll depend on ill-gotten fame because you're being gawked at in service to something that already is getting attention for all the wrong reasons. So that's also something to think about too. There's a lot with this whole carbonation, carbon boy situation. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to keep, making commentary and content on it, as we should. This is something that the community, the world, this nation should look at and think about in terms of these type of I want to say people, but this level of psychology, this level of where the world that we live in, the world of, economic stress and change and societal pressures and inequities and injustices, all of that is something that should be looked at as how did a Nature Boy even exist in the first place, So yeah, that's all I have for now. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And I look forward to hearing your comments and engaging with your comments on this. This is something that we should all take seriously and talk about and engage in. So yeah. Thank you so much. Have a great one.